Okay, I know I want to get some discs, but these names are confusing. This one says champion. I like that. Maybe I want to be a champion. But this one says star. I mean, I could be a star. Oh, this one's different. This one says Gastar. I wonder what that means. Oh, this one says pro. Could I be a pro? I mean, why wouldn't I want what the pros throw? Pros throw pro, right? Oh, this one doesn't say anything. We surveyed almost 700 disc golfers and asked what manufacturer made their first disc or starter set. 66% said Innova. However, choosing the right first disc from Innova can be tricky and may result in a player not choosing to purchase their second, because the plastic is in the details. Hey everyone, it's Greg from Six Sided Discs. We're comparing a bunch of different discs manufactured by Innova in different plastics to see once and for all just how different their plastics fly. But the question is why? Well, with 2/3 of our survey respondents starting their disc golf journey with Innova, it reminded me of a frequent interaction I have with new players at our pop-up shops. Looking to purchase their next disc, they aren't quite sure what they want, so I ask to see what they're currently throwing, and I find a bunch of discs that look like this. Now, anyone that knows anything about Innova plastics will tell you that Champion is probably not the best choice for a disc golfer's first disc, because it's usually overstable. Or is it? Or is it for every single mold? Well, we're going to put that to the test in just a minute, but I think it's important to remember the environment that many of these players are purchasing their first disc in. Yes. And more often than not, the staff in these places barely know what disc golf is, never mind being able to answer questions about the discs or plastics. And until disc golf pro shops become more common, this is the reality that we live in. Now, it does seem that some effort has been made to educate new players in these locations, such as this retail display from Innova that has a description of flight numbers at the top, along with tags to show which ones are putters, mid-ranges, or drivers. Though upon closer inspection, there's more than meets the eye. You'll see that there's a Beast on a putter shelf, an AVR on a mid-range shelf, and a Mako 3 on another putter shelf. Now, I don't know the solution to this specific issue, but I don't think there's any denying that it exists. Perhaps the biggest issue this presents is one where a player is looking at multiple versions of a disc, one in Champion, Star, G-Star, and DX, and they see the same flight numbers on each. To a new player, they assume that they all fly the same because they are advertised that they fly the same. Now, some other companies like MVP put different flight numbers on certain plastics because they know that it changes the flight path. So how much does Innova's plastic change the flight of a disc? Let's find out. We have 9 different discs in different plastics to compare today, and these are all manufactured by Innova, either for Innova, Infinite Discs, or Millennium Discs. First up, let's take a look at the Innova Thunderbird. This isn't our first time throwing or comparing Thunderbirds. Check out our Flight Numbers Don't Matter video where we tried Thunderbirds, or something that flies like 9502 from other manufacturers, even though almost no discs actually share the same flight numbers with the Thunderbird. We have 3 Thunderbirds to test today, one in Star Plastic, one in Champion, and Halo Star. In our experience, we would expect Halo or Champion to be more overstable than Star, so let's see if that's true. And indeed it is. The Star Thunderbird does exactly what we expect from a Star Thunderbird, holding straight for a moment before getting a nice, generous fade. The Halo Thunderbird has just a little more overstability, not holding on quite as straight, while the Champion Thunderbird is absolute beef. So, par for the course so far, everything is as expected with the Thunderbird, but will it continue? Let's move on to the Infinite Discs, Anubis. Rated at 5500 and manufactured by Innova, it feels very similar to a Mako or Mako 3. But rumor has it that the Anubis is actually made using Innova's old Coyote mold. In D-blend plastic, Infinite's version of DX, the Anubis resists flipping up and instead holds straight briefly before a smooth fade. In I-blend plastic, which is a softer version of Star and also less expensive, the Anubis flips to flat, gets a brief turn before a smooth fade. While in C-blend glow, similar to Champion glow from Innova, the Anubis actually turns over, holding straight for most of its flight before a very subtle fade. And this is interesting because this is kind of the opposite of what we would expect. Our premium plastic is more understable, while the base plastic is more stable. Next, let's see the only putter that we'll be comparing today, the Rhino. We have the Rhino in 3 plastics today, Champion, R Pro, and DX. The Rhino is an overstable putt and approach disc rated at 2103. And again, typically we usually expect premium plastic to be more overstable. So, does the Rhino follow suit? No, it does not. The Champion Rhino flips up and turns, surprisingly, while the DX Rhino is super beefy and overstable. The R Pro Rhino flies a lot like the DX Rhino as well, but not a lot of glide and plenty of overstability. So in 2 out of 3 discs so far, we're seeing sort of the opposite of what we would expect. But those were both slower speed discs. So what about high speed discs? Well, from our slowest disc to our fastest, let's see the Innova Colossus. The Colossus is a 14-speed driver, typically rated at 5 glide, -1 turn, and 3 fade. But in an interesting twist, the G-Star version is stamped with -2 turn, instead of -1. Why Innova suddenly decided to change the flight numbers for just one of their discs is puzzling, but let's see if it was a correct choice. The Champion Colossus does get a nice smooth turn before a big fade, and it looks to fly pretty true to the flight numbers. Meanwhile, the G-Star Colossus can get anywhere from a pretty big turn to a massive turn. So Innova's decision to change the flight numbers for the Colossus seemed to make sense, but it begs the question why that can't be done for any other molds. Next up is another high-speed distance driver, this time from Millennium, the Falcon. The Falcon is a combination of 2 discs from Innova, the Destroyer and the Shrike, and it's rated at 13.5 -22. We're throwing it in 2 plastics today, Quantum, aka Champion from Innova, and Helio Sirius, aka Halo Star. And let's go ahead and watch these Falcons side by side. And wow, both are so understable. You can see that the Quantum Falcon has just a tiny bit more stability, at least fading at the end of its flight, where the Helio Sirius Falcon just keeps going and turning and going and turning. So definitely a little bit of a difference there, but between 2 overstable plastics, it's hard to say how much difference we expect to see. Let's move on now to what should be a nice straight fairway driver, the TL3. We have the Innova TL3 in 2 plastics today, Star and Halo Star. Rated at 8.4 -11, the TL3 is a longer flying version of the T-Bird 3, but sounds like it should be more straight. Let's compare. Well, looking at these side by side, honestly, neither of them is very straight. Both are pretty overstable, and were reliably overstable on every flight. However, I am surprised to see both Star and Halo Star flying so similarly. Let's see if that continues with some of our later discs. Now back to Infinite Discs again, let's take a look at the Roman. The Roman is Infinite Discs' version of the PD, aka Power Disc, rated at 10.403. We have the Roman in 2 plastics today, iBlend, a softer star-type plastic, but again, much less expensive, and Halo S-Blend, Infinite's version of Halo Star. In iBlend plastic, the Roman stands up to flat for a moment before getting a nice big fade. Meanwhile, in Halo S-Blend plastic, the Roman does almost the exact same thing, standing up, holding flat, before fading out. And here we have another really interesting example of a plastic iBlend that we expect to be much less stable than Halo, flying exactly the same. Anyways, let's move on to our next disc, a long-distance bomber from Infinite, the Emperor. The Emperor is rated at 12.5, -1, 2.5, and is the signature disc of long-distance bomber himself, Garrett Gurthey. Unfortunately, though, for today, we're not purely interested in distance, but rather the flight path of the disc. We're going to compare an S-Blend Emperor with an I-Blend Emperor. And there is a slight weight difference here of about 6 grams. Our S blend is 170, while the I blend is 164. So keep that in mind as well. Our S blend Emperor on a little bit of hyzer doesn't flip one bit. It holds that hyzer angle, but still gets some solid distance. While on the same angle, the I blend Emperor goes. It gets a nice big flip up and turn, starts to fight back, and easily had another 100 feet or more on it when it hit a tree at about 400 feet. The I blend Emperor would make a great tailwind driver. 6 grams may be a decent difference, but I don't think it's enough to fully explain the difference in the flight between those two Emperors, and that's more along the lines of what we expect from I blend plastic. Finally, that takes us to our last disc, the Boss. And we saved the best for last because we have 4 different plastics to test the Boss in: Star, Champion, Halo Star, and Blizzard Champion. Now, obviously here there's a huge weight difference for Blizzard Champion versus the other plastics, but that weight difference is the thing that makes Blizzard Champion plastic unique. So we still want to test it and see how they compare. So I think we all think we know which one's the most understable, but which one do you think is the most overstable? Let's see. First, let's see the Blizzard Champion Boss. And it gets a nice big turn, but starts to fade much earlier than I expected. And just like the I blend Emperor before it, it slams into a tree at around 400 feet with tons of flying left to do. It's clearly no fluke that the Blizzard Champion Boss is the world record distance disc. But what about in Champion plastic? Well, you clearly need to be some kind of power throwing champion for Champion plastic to work for you, because the Champion Boss is crazy overstable. In fact, the Champion Boss flew an awful lot like the Halo Star Boss, which was also crazy overstable. No flip up, no turn, just fade. So what about the Star Boss? And wow, what a difference. The Star Boss is even more understable than the Blizzard Champion Boss. And it's a solid 11 grams heavier than the Blizzard Boss as well, so it's clearly not about weight. So the plastics on the Boss were really surprising and kind of defied expectations. While Star wouldn't be my first choice as the most overstable, it definitely wouldn't be my first choice as the most understable either. So where does that leave us? Well, much like in many of our previous plastic comparison videos, there doesn't seem to be a clear rule that we can apply. But I do think we picked up on a couple of little patterns. When it comes to lower speed discs like the Rhino and Anubis, sometimes base plastic actually flies a little more overstable. But it's important to keep in mind that that base plastic is also going to bead in much more quickly. However, with our drivers, we were kind of all over the place. Sometimes they lined up exactly the same, and sometimes the plastics were super different and in unexpected ways. Now, I totally understand that this is a complicated topic, and certainly not one that's exclusive to Innova, as this affects probably the vast majority of disc golf manufacturers. But I'm curious your thoughts on what you think disc golf companies could do differently about flight numbers, and maybe changing them or setting better expectations about the plastics and how they really think they're going to fly. So leave a comment down below. And until such time as they do make those changes, we'll keep testing and comparing their discs, because the plastic is in the details. For Six Sided Discs, I'm Greg. We'll see you in the next one. So, dogs are barking. But it begs the question, why are they... Now, it does seem like they're... Hello, this is Greg. All right, sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg. Take care.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. Okay, we're back. Where were we? One more time.
Oh! Dude, what just happened? I've held on my finger for ages.
Ooh. Flattish. Yeah, mate. Just a little bit of hyzer. Hardly ever.
Oh. Oh, yep. See ya. Good rolling.
you like this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, or supporting us on Patreon. Your support makes this content possible.